Hi folks, HR Funk here with a quick follow-up to the review that I have been conducting on the Bergara B14R 22 rimfire rifle. If you've seen the previous videos that I produced using the B14R, you might remember that at the end of the last video, I mentioned that I don't think I have found the best ammunition, or at least the most accurate ammunition, to use with the B14R as of the end of that video. Since that time, I have been conducting some ammunition testing, and in this video, I'm going to show you the results of those tests. One thing I have to mention though is I do not have a lot of footage from the range due to the fact that on the day when I was at the range, there were other shooters there, and I just couldn't disturb them while I ran down range and set up cameras and moved back and forth and changed everything around and all that. So I have limited range footage, but I do have the results of that ammunition testing that I have in the shop with me here. I can show you the targets, and I can talk a little bit about what I'm seeing in terms of the type of ammunition that the B14R actually does like. So here we go. When I went to the range the other day, I took a variety of different types of 22 ammunition with me, and when I got there, I set up at a distance of 50 yards, shooting from the bench, and I was looking for any ammunition initially the rifle was going to show a strong preference for. And I'm not going to waste your time showing you different groups with ammunition that it didn't like, but the first one that really caught my attention was Wolf Match Target. And I was not tremendously surprised by that because I've had pretty good luck shooting this in virtually any 22 rifle that I've ever tried it in. The only problem with the Wolf Match Target is it's hard to find. I got quite a bit of this stuff years ago at a gun show when you could still find it. And over the years, I've depleted that supply, which is unfortunate because, as I said, it's difficult to find. But there's the 5-shot group from 50 yards with the Wolf Match Target coming in at 3/8 of an inch center to center. And that was the first really good group that I fired that day. By the way, yes, between each type of ammunition, I'm firing 10 shots to condition the bore before I fire one of these groups for record. So that got my attention, and I was pretty happy with it. So I went on from there testing more of the ammunition, and I'll show you the next one that caught my attention. This is the load that really stole the show on this particular day out at the range. This is Eley Match. And when I fired it from that distance of 50 yards, there's the resulting 5-shot group that actually comes in slightly less than 1/4 of an inch center to center for all 5 shots. When I saw this, I was extremely intrigued, and I wanted to do a little bit more shooting with it to see if this was a fluke or if the B14R was going to remain consistent in terms of its accuracy with the Eley Match. And I'll show you the next couple of groups that I shot on a different target. These are the next two groups that I fired with the Eley Match ammo. And as you can see, this one comes in at ½ minute of angle, right on the money, actually just slightly less because this is 0.5 inches center to center for that 5-shot group. This one is sub-minute of angle coming in at 3/8 of an inch center to center for 5 shots. So there was nothing quite as accurate or quite as tight, maybe I should say, as this 5-shot group, but still this is very, very acceptable accuracy for my purposes. And keep in mind, I'm evaluating this rifle for use as a sub-caliber trainer for the professional rifle shooter, and getting this type of accuracy is certainly going to work well for my purposes. So next up, it was time to set up my target with the tiny bad guys. You've seen that in the previous videos where I've been using the B14R, and see what it looked like when I ran through putting 1 shot on each bad guy from a prone position at that distance of 50 yards, and I'll show you that target now. So here once again is that precision rifle target from the official target sponsor of the channel, Targets Online. You know, if you've seen the previous videos that I produced with the B14R, the idea is to put 1 shot on each target. I'm not looking at groups here, I'm looking at precision for each shot. And of course I started things off with the Eley Match with one outside of the target area, which was very annoying. After that, things stayed very consistent as I worked my way through the target. I had one that I pulled low here. After firing all 8 shots, I attempted to put a headshot on these 2 targets, and you can see this one ended up being more of a throat shot, and this one did as well. So These targets are maddening, I've got to say that, because you're trying to work your way through here and get a shot on these relatively quickly and keep that precision that you need for the professional rifle shooter. But there always seems to be one or two that make it just outside of there. And I guess that makes it fun as well because you're trying as hard as you can to work on your basic principles of marksmanship while getting these shots off relatively quickly. But overall, I was pretty happy with this. So next, I wanted to extend the range a little bit with the Eley match ammo and see what kind of performance I would get at 100 yards. For that, I'm using my Mad Bomber target, and I'll grab that here momentarily. Here is our Mad Bomber target, and I've got 5 shots on here that I fired with the Eley match ammo. And the first thing I had to determine when I put this target out at 100 yards was what kind of elevation correction was going to be required in order to bring my shots in line with my point of aim. This is the very first shot that I fired at 100 yards with the 50-yard zero still on the rifle, and this amounted to a 6 minute of angle drop that I had to correct for in order to bring my shots up into this part of the target. By the way, you see all of these white stickers on here. The reason for that is because the first 5-shot group that I fired from 100 yards, while I was calculating the elevation correction, I missed a wind shift. The wind picked up, I was getting a left to right wind, and when I fired these shots, they all went out to the right side of the target. So I covered these up and reshot this portion. By the way, I had a lull at the range. I was there by myself for just a little bit. So I got my camera downrange in time to record this one, and I'll show you that footage right now. So this 5-shot group with the Eley match ammunition is actually just under 1 inch center to center from that distance of 100 yards. Whichever way I measure it, it's coming in at just a tick under 1 inch center to center. So that is a true minute of angle group, actually slightly sub-minute of angle group at that distance of 100 yards with the Eley match ammo out of the B14R rifle. I was quite impressed with that, and I think that is absolutely adequate for using this rifle as a sub-caliber trainer. While I was at the range the other day, I had this ammunition with me as well. This is a Federal Gold Medal high velocity match load, and I was curious how it would perform out of the B14R. Now you might be wondering, why do I care about a high velocity match? Anyone who's serious about the accuracy out of their .22 rifle uses some sort of a subsonic or lower velocity ammunition, so you don't have to worry about it going transonic and losing accuracy. The reason is because at the extended distances where I would like to use this rifle, 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, etc., the high velocity is going to have less drop and therefore require less of an elevation correction out of the B14R, so I just wondered what kind of accuracy I would get with this. And I started off with this target at 50 yards. This was my very first shot using the same 50-yard zero that I used with the Eley match. After this shot, I made a sight correction, and these these 4 shots at 50 yards went into right at half an inch center to center, and I thought that was pretty good. If we add this into the group, it's going to be a little bit bigger than that, but all in all, not bad. So I thought it might be fun, since I had the target set up and everything else, to run this ammunition on my tiny bad guys and see how it would do compared to the Eley match from that distance of 50 yards. And once again, let me grab that target. Say hello once again to my little friends, and check this out. With that high velocity federal gold medal match, I've got one shot down here just outside of the target in the center of the chest of the bad guy, and this one tried to make it out but didn't. So the accuracy that I'm seeing on this drill really is more or less on par with what I was seeing with the Eley match. And the federal high velocity match is also less expensive than the Eley, so that's not insignificant either. However, my 2 headshots on these targets were not nearly as precise as the 2 headshots, where are they, that I fired with the Eley match. These are not fantastic headshots, but they're better than these 2. So that might be an area where, when it comes to absolute pinpoint precision, the federal match is not going to keep up with the Eley. But I decided to try this at 100 yards also, once again looking at the amount of drop that I was going to see from that distance, and also what type of correction I would need to make, and what type of accuracy I would get with the federal high velocity match at that distance. Once again, let me grab my Mad Bomber target. As my point of aim for the federal high velocity match, I decided to use this red dot inside of the clock for the Mad Bomber as my point of aim. And these are going to be very difficult to see. In fact, I could not see these shots at all, even through the spotting scope, when I was set up at 100 yards. So I was just firing these shots, and I knew I would have to go down range later on to see where they hit. By the way, by this time, I had more shooters back at the range, and once again, I was not able to get the camera set up and record this. But this was my very first shot at 100 yards, and the drop with the high velocity match was only 4.5 minutes of angle, as opposed to the 6 minutes of angle with the Eley match that I fired previously. This is at only 100 yards. At 200 yards or 300 yards, that's going to be even a greater and greater difference in the trajectory between the Eley match and the high velocity federal match, which is why I'm testing this. My very first shot went high, and I have no explanation for that whatsoever. Everything else is right here. Once again, this is just over 1 minute of angle for these 4 shots. When I add this one in, I think that makes it 2 minutes of angle. And this could have been me. Maybe I just wasn't set up well. Maybe I squeezed off a bad shot. I don't know. It's just odd that that one went high and then everything else stayed right here. So not bad accuracy, but as I said, I couldn't see any of these, so I couldn't make any sort of correction or make any adjustment for wind or anything else. I was just having to fire these at this red part of the dial right here, or what's, I guess, the second hand for the clock for the hands. I did, however, go to a different part of the target where I could at least see the impacts, and I'll show you that target right now, or at least that portion of the target. I decided to use the Mad Bomber's hand as a point of aim because I knew with the color on this part of the target, I would at least be able to see where the shots were hitting from 100 yards. And the problem with using something like this is it lacks a really nice, precise aiming point. Whenever I have a target like this, if I can find a button or some feature on the target that is about the size of the bullet, that's what I like to use to aim when I'm firing from any distance, but especially a distance where it's going to be difficult to see the shots. This group, center to center, is 1.5 inches, and these are 4 shots. I ran out of ammunition that I had loaded into the magazine after that point. But these 4 shots are in, as I said, 1.5 minutes. 2 shots went through this exact same hole. So once again, I think for The cost of this ammunition, the fact that it has less drop at extended distances, and the fact that I'm getting this type of accuracy out of it is pretty darn good. I think I'm going to explore using this Federal Gold Medal High Velocity Match more and more. I've got one more box of this stuff, and I might buy some more of it even after that because the B14R seems to like it. So there you go, folks. That's going to do it for this update video on the B14R and the ammunition that it's showing me that it's tending to like. If you have any questions or comments about this video, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, stop by my website, check out the news and information page to see all the latest things that are going on with me and the channel, and also go by to the products page because a lot of the products that I've reviewed here on the channel have links to the manufacturers on that page, and there's information beneath some of those links that'll save you some money if you decide to make a purchase. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.